Time to look back at the last Forge FC contest.
Simply stunning stuff. And finally, their goal.
Here is Match and Review.
My word, what a rocket.
With Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network.
Hey, Forge fans. It is the Forge Audio Network. I'm your host, Anthony Urciuoli. It's Match in Review. The final whistle has gone. Forge FC falling in Nova Scotia against Halifax Wanderers FC. It was an interesting match. It was a playoff-like match. Tempers flaring, calls not quite going Forge's way, adding to those flaring tempers. It was an entertaining match. I mean, there's no question about that. But Forge ends up on the losing end, and that creates an interesting finish to the regular season because we are guaranteed to have an important season finale next weekend in Hamilton, Ottawa, Forge FC, forgefc.ca/tickets to be there live. But it is going to be something because it looks like it is going to be a must-win match for Forge if they want to finish in the top two. But we'll dissect the table because there's a big match coming up in less than an hour now. The BC Derby is a big one if you're a Forge fan. And again, we will get more into that as well. Before we kind of get into things here, I do want to point out, for those of you that are watching the broadcast, I'm wearing my orange. Well, I mean, that's almost everything I wear that is Forge is going to be orange. That's just the team colors. But on this day, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, the orange I am wearing, it's the limited edition Indigenous-inspired team logo on the front. Beautiful. For those of you that can see it's the logo. It's unbelievably, it's beautiful. It's perfect. I love everything about this logo. And I just want to point out that major props to the CPL, to the Wanderers. On this day, obviously the match started with both clubs wearing orange as they walked out. The kids walked out with the players. They were also wearing orange. And they chose to forego the national anthem out of respect for the victims of this country's just terrible, awful, inexcusable history and its treatment. And in a lot of ways continued just terrible treatment of its Indigenous population. In the grand scheme of things, especially considering our history, a 7-minute pregame ceremony, it's pretty minor relatively. But I just wanted to point, I thought the league, the clubs, I thought they got it exactly right. And that's not always easy to do in sports. We've seen clubs, leagues botch these moments all the time. But I thought this was perfect. I thought it was exactly what was needed. It was executed. Everything was just right. And I remember I'm watching it. I'm always a little nervous watching these because I have this anxiety of, I hope just something doesn't go wrong or something it's such a delicate situation and it deserves the proper respect. And my anxieties were unwarranted because it was perfection. So shout out to the league, shout out to the clubs. And shout out to Halifax. Their in-stadium operations and everything they do, everything turned out amazing. So kudos to them. Of course, Forge didn't have to they didn't have to undergo a dramatic costume change before the opening whistle because they were wearing their all oranges to play Halifax in their home blue kits with their light shorts. Forge FC coming out with a lineup that was similar to last week's. Forge was a little surprising in their lineup last week with 3 center backs with a 5-man back line, but a 5-man back line that was more of a 3-man back line because the 2 fullbacks very involved in the offense, playing more like wing backs. It was Poku, it was Rama. Both had arguably their best games as pros last week. Well, maybe that's not fair because Rama's done, but in Rama's case, I mean, he scored, and that's why I'm saying that. But with his first ever pro goal, well deserved, and it's those 2 fullbacks, they stirred the drink, as they say, last week in the 3-1 win at home over Pacific. In the midfield, in this one, Hojab, Rapport, Becker, Sissoko, and up top, Campbell. Pacius and Badi Banga. This one was interesting right from the get-go. And I we've seen some tentative play in these playoff type matchups involving Forge, the kind of playing not to lose, playing not to make a mistake. But lately, over the past maybe month or so, this team they've ramped it up to an entirely different level. They're no longer playing not to lose. They're dictating. They're playing with purpose, intensity, and it showed. In early on, you always get a good indicator of where a team is, just their energy, their commitment to the match, and commitment to the details is how they do in those 50-50 situations, those duels with their opponents, where it's just one-on-one, who's going to win the battle, who's going to win the ball, who's going to, if you do lose the ball, who's going to get the ball back immediately after in the recovery. And early on, some really good signs for Forge, because those ground duels, Rizar Rama, he scored his first ever goal for Forge last week in a 3-1 win over Pacific. And in this one, a man possessed this afternoon in Nova Scotia. At one point early on, he blocked a shot, and when I'm watching it, it looked like Forge was in trouble. I mean, Halifax had the ball in the area with a clear lane to the goal. And as the Halifax player wound up to get the shot off, Rama just came flying into the frame. His body was horizontal. And he threw his body in front of that shot and blocked it. And those are the early signs you want in your team. Those plays are contagious. It sends a message to your teammates. When we talk about leadership, and this can apply to all sports, but particularly in soccer, it's not about the rah-rah, who's doing the speeches, who's taking you aside and talking to you and yelling in your face and getting you motivated. Sometimes your play speaks for itself. And this was the case in this match, even though the result did not go Forge FC's way. I think Forge, this is one of the rare exceptions. This is a results-oriented game for sure. Having said that, if you're a Forge fan, there isn't a whole lot to be disappointed. I mean, this is one of those situations where it happened the way it happened. In other words, Forge didn't play poorly. There wasn't a whole lot they could have done different. They played well. They probably deserved a better result, and it just didn't go their way. But everything we saw, all the habits, everything, they played the way they wanted to play, and sometimes you don't get the result. And when that happens, you can't be disappointed in your squad because they left it all out there. They did what they needed to do, and sometimes it just doesn't go your way. But just going back to Rama with that block shot, you could hear Tristan Henry's keeper gloves just banging together as he clapped for Rama's efforts. And he was winning 50-50s all over the pitch. He wasn't the only one, and we'll certainly cover that later. But 12-minute mark, one of the very few mistakes Forge made defensively. Halifax opened the scoring. Massimo Ferrin, he's been a Forge killer this year, left completely unmarked. It was a very simple cross, very simple play. Just the wires got a little crossed, and Ferrin was just all alone. He had a free header, and he put his club up 1-0. It was one major mistake, and it ended up in a goal. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. Forge responded, though, with a flurry of shot attempts. I mean, they responded. But to Halifax's credit, they were selling out, getting their bodies in between the shooters and their keeper, doing what they needed to do to ensure Forge was not able to respond right away. And I will point out, while I liked Forge's efforts, there was that when this goal, after the opening goal, Forge wanted that goal back. I mean, they were determined to get that ball back, but it was a little too chaotic. You know, when things, you like the energy, you like the effort, but there's kind of a fine line between just going all out and throwing all your energy out there. You kind of need to balance that with some composure because there's still a structure that needs to be in place. It's a balancing act. But after giving up the opening goal, Forge, they had a lot more jump, but it's funny to say, but sometimes a little too jumpy. A little too much adrenaline, a little too much urgency, which again sounds counter to what I'm talking about. You want to bring this, but again, there's a way to balance it while remaining structured. And they weren't quite playing their game after the goal. I thought it was just a little too hectic. I don't. This club, the way they play, the beauty of this club is their structure and their ability to play a high intensity game while maintaining that structure. And I thought they got away from it. It got a little disorganized, despite all of their shot attempts. So you like the response. You just want a little more composure. Composed urgency is probably the right way to frame that. And it's a fine line. Fortunately for Forge, they found it. And you felt like it was a matter of time before they found the equalizer. And I wrote that. I said, matter of time before they find the equalizer. Next line, 34th minute. The league's top goal scorer in terms of goals per minute. Rubens Bacias, his 9th of the year. He's averaging a goal every 137 minutes. That is best in the league. But the moments that led up to this goal need equal attention here. Badi Banga sees active bodies in the area, so he lobs a pass into the box. Rosard Rama had a pretty clear look at the goal, but his body was turned a little bit. So instead of trying for his second goal in as many matches, which he would have been well within his rights to do. I mean, he was right in front of the keeper. But because his body was contorted a bit, his back was a little bit to the keeper, he was kind of diagonal. Instead of attempting to put it on goal, it's just what a heads-up play, high IQ play. He went back to Sissoko on the other side of the box, who found Pasillas for a tap-in. 3 key passes that led to that tying goal. Rama, fresh off his first goal of his career, hungry for another, but he does the selfless thing, the team thing. He realizes his teammates are in an even better position, and selfless, served his teammates, and with that, Forge drew even. I will say some of the chaos, that chaotic parts of their play at times early on, it boiled over, and it wasn't completely this club's fault. They were on the wrong. This is where it all went downhill, in my opinion. Forge was on the wrong side of a throw-in ruling, and it seems minor, but this throw-in would have been deep inside Halifax's area when Forge was already pushing, already attacking. They were feeling it. They just got their tying goal. They were the better team, front foot, dictating play. And this throw-in ruling goes against them. And what's frustrating about them is not all missed calls are equal. You get some that are close and you go, okay, I mean, yes, it's the wrong call, but I kind of get it. We don't have the luxury of VAR and replay. So it is what it is. When it's a close call, you kind of give the referee a little bit of leniency, but the line judge, I mean, blatant missed call, an obvious one. It goes against Forge. And then this is where things that raises things start getting heated. Let's put it that way. Because shortly after, it was a run. I want to say Taron Campbell, may have been Badi Banga. A clear run toward goal. He got past his player. He dribbled past the defensive midfielder, and now Forge is on their horse. They're on the attack. But the player that was beaten for Halifax reaches and grabs the Forge player and slows him down as he's trying to get to the loose ball. Not only a clear foul, we're talking potentially yellow card here. A player had a clear lane toward the ball, toward goal, and he was grabbed as he was trying to run by a defender. That typically gets you booked. Not only was there no booking, there wasn't even a whistle. And so this is right after the missed throw-in. Now this missed foul happens. So the temperatures start rising. Hojai Rapport, typically a calm, cool guy, he makes let's call it a tactical infraction. He essentially returns the favor. Halifax player gets by him. He reaches and grabs, but he gets booked for essentially the same thing that just happened that didn't go your way. So Well, I should clarify. He gets booked because of the reaction afterwards. When the whistle went, he reacted at the referee. Referee gave him a yellow card. So Forge feeling kind of screwed over here. 42nd minute, Forge got a tiny break. Halifax thought they had scored the go-ahead goal, but offside was ruled. And the Wanderers, they were offside by a hair. And the reason I say Forge caught a break, not because it was not an offside, but because it was one of those really close plays. I mean, he was off by a hair, and a lot of times those don't go your way. So I say they caught a break because the referee actually got a really close call correct. And moments later, it was the wrong call against Forge again. Turning points, Bobby Smirniota says this all the time. The most important play in any soccer match is a throw-in. His point being, it is the minor details. These small moments build. They're pieces of a puzzle that end up dictating the result a lot of the time. So when a clear throw-in doesn't go your way, now, it happens. We understand that. Calls don't go. It's the nature of the sport. But it really started to snowball after that for Forge because they're on the wrong end of a call. Again, after Rezard Rama saved the goal off the goal line, Alessandro Hojab-Rapport slides to clear the ball. Farron, the Halifax player, jumped over the tackle, ended up landing on his stomach, leading to a foul on Hojab-Rapport. And in stoppage time, it's a penalty. A stoppage time penalty for Halifax. And it was a penalty that the defender, Nimick, who's automatic, generally, buried it, giving the home side a 2-1 lead. Forge was irate after the call. And again, it's compounded by some officiating errors in the moments leading up to that foul. 2 Forge coaches got booked for dissent after they were upset over the call in the area. And just like that, it's, again, the sport, it happens sometimes. Everything looks right. You're doing all the right things. And then something doesn't go your way, and then something else doesn't go your way, and then something else. And all of a sudden you're going, how are we losing right now? So we go into halftime with Forge trailing 2-1, ball possession, 58% in favor of Forge, shot attempts, 10-7, shots on target, 3-3. Now, shots off target, Forge had 4 of them, just 1 for Halifax. And attacks, 59-44 in favor of Forge. Dangerous attacks, 34-14 in favor of Forge FC. You do the right thing. Sometimes it's just you don't get the result you're looking for. So we go into half. And we've talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about character and how your team responds and being able to win ugly sometimes and being able to win when things don't go your way. How would Forge respond in the second half? After dictating the first half, playing on the front foot, but things just not going your way. Well, I can tell you this. The leaders led in that second half. Forge could not have done much more in the second half. Captain leading by example, Kyle Becker. In a span of I counted about 3 or 4 seconds, Kyle Becker had a tackle, a steal, and a shot on target, all in succession within tackle, steal, shot on target in a span of 3 seconds to start the half. You see that from a teammate, especially your captain. It is a guaranteed motivator. And the club followed suit shortly after. Mandrakar James, an absolute one-man wrecking crew. The center back disrupted Halifax's back line. We are live here, so I always hesitate to get too deep into our streaming technology where I'm sharing screens and playing things and whatnot, because I just don't want anything freezing, glitching, impacting the broadcast. But I may bring up a heat map later. Mandrakar James, a center back. If I don't bring it up, you can check out his heat map for this game. I have never seen a center back. I mean, the entire field is just dark red. He was everywhere. He was on the right side, the left side, the midfield, the attacking area. He was inside the area more than some of the strikers were in this one. And again, so he's forward. He's playing in an advanced position. He is determined in the second half to get Forge level. And he created He busted through the back line, forced a turnover. The ball lands on Pasillas' feet. He's about 12 yards out, but just unable to convert. Couldn't quite get his feet under him. He's a little off balance, and so he couldn't get the shot he wanted to off. But Forge was buzzing. And speaking of James, 62nd minute. Again, he barreled his way onto the Wanderers' side of the pitch, countered. I counted 4 different times where it looked like he had lost possession, that it was just going to be kind of a sloppy turnover. But he was so determined in that second half. He kind of lost the ball, but he would regain it. Then he would lose it, and then regain it. And then someone would steal it, and he'd regain it. And it just happened 4 times leading up. And all of that hard work, Forge was rewarded because there was a foul near the area, about 20 yards from goal. And it led to a free kick from Badi Banga. Very dangerous on set pieces, as you know. Remember, he was a latecomer to the squad. He joined, around mid-season, and he already has 2 goals off of free kicks this year. So he's dangerous, and he missed this one, but just missed it wide left. But you look at the work rate in this second half. Becker, James, Rama, Ashen Yodiansen, a guy that sometimes goes under the radar because he's just so technically good. And sometimes those things don't jump out when you're watching. But it's just everything. He just always does the right thing. He's just so technically gifted. And, because James was so in Ashen Yodiansen's center back partner, Mandrikar James was involved in the offense. I mean, he was up the pitch for most of that second half. So it was up to Alex to be that just stable presence on the back line. And he played fantastic. He won so many balls. He slowed down so many counters from Halifax. He had a really, I'm going to say, underrated game in that, again, nothing he did really just jumps out and hits you in the face when you're watching. But he was just so perfect in this one. And listen to those names I just gave you. Becker, James, Rama, Ashen Yodiansen. These are your leaders. They led the way with their play in that second half. 71st minute, Abubakar Sissoko, who provided the assist on that opening goal for Forge from Pasillas. Sissoko is subbed off. On comes Tristan Borges to finish the game for Forge. Halifax makes a change of their own, leading to the arrival of big Daniil Henry. I will never stop being amazed at the size of Daniil. I mean, soccer players just don't come in that size. There's something, I'm in awe when I see him play. I'm just, like, a guy that big isn't supposed to be able to move that way. And he's agile for his size, absolute unit. And I stood beside him. If you remember last year, Henry and Richie Larea were at Tim Hortons Field. Daniil Henry and Richie Larea, they're at Tim Hortons Field as I did a little halftime interview with them on the field at a Forge home game. It was a send-off for the Canadian national team as they were heading to Qatar for the World Cup. And I mean, everyone looks huge beside me, but Henry was maybe the most physically imposing soccer player I've ever seen up close. But anyways, I digress. Henry enters the game for Halifax. 78th minute, Forge with another sub. Malik Oluwabu Balu on, Hojab Rapport off, and Jordan Hamilton enters the game. Taron Campbell off. Taron Campbell, I feel it. There is a prolific Campbell heater coming. He's going to get hot. You feel it. The goals in bunches. I feel like we're close, and the timing could not be perfect with one final regular season game remaining next weekend. So Campbell comes off 78th minute, not able to find the score sheet, but it's there. It's so close, and it's coming, and I think it's going to be timely when it does. Revisiting, well, I should point out the final. This is why I say Forge really did everything they could. I mean, sure, there are some human mistakes that happen throughout, but no team's ever going to play a perfect game. But I got to tell you, I was happy with the way the club played and the way they finished. I mean, Halifax hung on for dear life in those final minutes, which you may have noticed. And looking at the final stats there, obviously this game ended 2-1. You know that Halifax won the match. Before they really pressed late. I think when you're talking about how does a team respond after a first half in which they were so frustrated, nothing seemed to go their way, bad luck. Having said all that, Forge, I mean, they answered the bell. They did what if you looked at that performance, you're saying, yeah, that's exactly what we needed from them. We got it. It didn't result in a tying goal. It didn't result in a win. It didn't result in any points. But this is one of those matches. I know as a fan, you don't like hearing this sometimes because you're so focused on the result. But I got to tell you, I'm happy with this one. Not the result, but I like the way the team played. I like the way they responded. Don't forget, this wasn't, Halifax. I mean, they were desperate in this. They had not yet clinched a playoff spot. They have now with this win, but they were trying to clinch. And, that was their final home match of the regular season. And Halifax, tough place to play, the best home team in the league. And so it's going to be tough. No one said this is going to be easy. Not at this time of the year, not in this league, the way it's structured now with the parity that we're seeing. So if you're Forge, you're disappointed, but you're certainly not down on yourself in what was a really good effort. And here's your proof. You look at the final stats here. Expected goals in this one. Forge 1.49, Halifax 1.36. Forge did enough to get 3 points. It just did not go their way. It happens. Ball possession in this one, 60% in favor of Forge FC. Forge had, now listen to this. This is what I'm talking about. Forge had 21 attempts on goal. 21. They had 8 shots on target. Halifax had 3. And Forge, so they had 8 on target, 8 that missed the target. 5 of their attempts were blocked. And Halifax, their keeper made 7 saves. I mean, you're going to take that if you're a club. If you had been told going into this match that Forge was going to hit the target 8 times and get 60% of the possession, not only that, but the dangerous attacks in this one, Forge would have 69 dangerous attacks and 48 for Halifax. You take it. You take it. Revisiting the 3 keys. Well, there's a bit of delay there. Well, I'll tell you this much without even bringing up the 3 keys. I think it's important to mention here. The big thing for Forge in this match, we were looking for a club that was looking, not only trying to build off of their most recent wins, but all you really wanted to see was this club. You wanted the consistency. You wanted them to play the same way they did in the last match and the one before that, where you got the result you wanted. At the end of the day, Forge did just that. They showed up in Halifax. They left it all on the field, and unfortunately did not get the result. Now, having said that, as we look at the table now, there is one more match remaining this season for Forge. It's coming up on Saturday, Tim Hortons Field. Ottawa is in town. Here is what is at stake going into next weekend. Now, remember, if you are listening live in about half an hour or so, if you're looking for something to watch or at least follow, track, check the score every once in a while, put alerts on to see what's going on. Pacific is hosting Vancouver at Starlight Stadium in Langford. Pacific currently trails second place Forge FC by 2 points with a match in hand, because they're going to play that match in hand right now soon. So what you're looking for if you're a Forge fan is a loss by Pacific would be great. A draw would be just as good at this point. Because to finish the year, so Forge has Ottawa, they have potential to reach 45 points. Pacific finishes the year on the road against Cavalry. Now, on paper, that looks like a really tough spot for Pacific. Unfortunately, Cavalry has clinched everything they need to clinch. They are the regular season champions. They are guaranteed home, at least one home match, the finals play-in match against either Forge or Pacific, depending how we finish here. And actually, Halifax technically still has an opportunity to finish second as well, but it's a bit of a long shot, but the opportunity is still there. So if you're a Forge fan, you are looking for Pacific to draw or lose against Vancouver today. And if that doesn't happen, you hope they draw or lose next week and Forge wins. This way, Forge can secure second place. They've already guaranteed a home match, but finishing second, I've talked about it. You don't need the explanation anymore, but let's just say it's better than a bye week. It is you play a one match play-in to get to the final. If you win, you host the CPL final. You lose, you host the semifinal, and then if you win that, you go on the road and play in the final. But either way, top two is where you want to be. Forge still has that opportunity, but they need Pacific to lose or draw one of their final two matches, and Forge needs to win the finale. That final finale, as mentioned, is next Saturday, October 7th, 4 o'clock, a rare afternoon game at Tim Hortons Field this season, taking on Atletico Ottawa. There's a 100% chance that game will mean a lot. So you have an opportunity to be there live. forgefc.ca/tickets. Your final, one final time. From Wanderers ground, Halifax 2, Forge 1. Look, enjoy. Again, not the greatest result, but it's okay. There's still a lot of excitement left, a lot to be hopeful for. Appreciate the effort that was put out there. And you're going to enjoy your weekend. That's what you're going to do. And then when the week starts, you are going to subscribe, follow the Forge Audio Network wherever you get your podcasts, also on YouTube, also Forge on social media, because we're just constantly rolling things out. Mackenzie Barwell's out there doing great daily content for you. Kyle Becker's been amazing on the channel. He has his own show, Behind the Beards, out there, so you can hear from Bobby. And I'll be there as well, providing a match day preview for that tilt with Ottawa. And then we will go from there. And hopefully we can talk about Forge's potential to clinch second place on the CPL table. All right. It's been a joy. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We will talk to you very, very soon.
This has been Match in Review with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. For the latest on all things Forge FC, subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.